thanks for joining us on Bomber TV. And I understand there's been a bit of a breakthrough in terms of the NAB Challenge contracts for the top-up players today.
Yeah, that's right, Jeremy. We've reached agreement today with the AFL and the AFLPA on the terms of the contract that the players will sign, both for the short-term contracts who are the ex-AFL players and for the VFL players who haven't been on an AFL list or haven't been on an AFL list for a number of years. So now we've probably the hold-up was just getting agreement on what happens in the event of injury to make sure the player's not suffering any loss of football income, and also if they've got a job, just make sure that the insurance policies that are in place there would provide them with some cover if they were unable to return to work.
Well, that's good news. So now what happens with the contracts and the process moving forward with those players that we've highlighted to help us out through the NAB Challenge?
So what will happen from here is the AFL will send a memo out to the state leagues who will forward that on to the clubs involved. So the clubs will have full oversight of the terms and conditions and get the understanding thereafter of what's actually involved in this process. We'll talk to the players and we'll also let the clubs know that this is where things are at. Now all we're really waiting for is the state league club to agree to release their player, and obviously the player to say, yeah, I'm happy with these conditions, and then all goes well there. We'd expect that some of the boys will be training with us tomorrow afternoon.
So we're waiting on the state leagues. You're hopeful that that will be tomorrow. Do we know how many of those top-up players that came into the club last week will be, available to train tomorrow?
Well, let's assume that everyone gives consent. If that's the case, then certainly the Victorian boys would be available to train tomorrow. Mitch Clisby's very keen from South Australia, and more than likely he'd be available to train tomorrow. Another player who we've spoken to in the last couple of days and has expressed an interest in being involved is Sam Michael, who's ex-Brisbane. So he's a 200 centimetre player, can play a number of roles. So he'd be a handy backup for either ruck or key position.
So what's the process for him? Do we need to then obviously contact his manager, or what's the path forward with him?
Yeah. So in Sam's case, we've obviously been communicating with his manager and Sam himself. We made a call to the club last week. We'll speak again to the club and speak to Sam, explain the terms and conditions, and then provided the club's happy to release him, Sam's ready to jump on a plane and come down as soon as he can.
So good to hear things are progressing well with Sam Michael. One player who we haven't heard a lot about since last week was Jared Petrenko. We're in negotiations with him and his manager at the moment.
Yeah, well, in Jared's case, it's probably a matter of just the club's really keen to get an understanding of the terms and conditions. So they'll get those today, and hopefully we can answer any further questions they might have. And, with any luck, they'd be happy to release him and we could get him over here as soon as possible.
So that sounds like it takes our list of top-up players to around 6. Are you feeling that that's a comfortable amount of players to get us through the NAB Challenge?
Well, we think that's probably about right for the NAB Challenge. We may need another one more. It depends a little bit. Obviously, you're relying on everyone being fit, and you're also relying on most of our players who are on our Essendon list who are available to be fit. If someone was to get an injury, something unexpected happened, then we might need to go and look for 1 or 2 more players.
And what about the other VFL players, the non-Essendon VFL players? How's discussions progressing with those players?
Yeah, well, in that case, we're just continuing to talk to 1 or 2 VFL clubs to see whether they'd be happy to provide us with a few extra players if we needed the numbers. We're hopeful that may not be the case, but we'll have a better idea once we get through this week, see how our own list looks at the end of the week, and then assess it from there.
So one important question is, who's going to coach the NAB Challenge team throughout the series?
Yeah, well, James will coach the NAB Challenge team. I mean, James is the senior coach of the football club. He's got an interest in all our listed players. It's an opportunity for him to get, in many cases, some of our draftees, some of our younger players, he won't have seen a whole lot of these boys except for vision and what he's seen out on the training track. So the ability for him to actually see players under pressure and exposed to other AFL clubs is going to be a real plus.
I guess we could see some of the new players out here training with the VFL tomorrow.
Yeah, look, more than likely that's what will happen. Whether it's all of them or just a number, it'll be the start, and they'll have a pretty big build up to a game next week.
Thanks for your time, Rob.
Great, thanks, Jeremy.